Freedom of speech was a student-led movement that took place from 1964 to 1965 at UC Berkeley. This movement was inspired by the struggle for civil rights and later fueled by opposition to the Vietnam War. The campus policy stated that Berkeley prohibits the use of university faculties for the purpose of soliciting party membership or supporting or opposing particular candidate or propositions in local, state, or national elections. Students had an issue with how administration was treating them, which led to months of protests that will forever be remembered as a time that students took initiative to protect their rights.
The freedom of speech movement was led by Berkeley student Mario Savio. Mario Savio is most known for the powerful speeches that he delivered during the free speech movement. In 1964, Savio traveled to Mississippi with hundreds of other students to participate in the Mississippi Freedom Summer. And upon returning to Berkeley in the fall, he saw that the university had begun to heavily enforce a ban on campus political activity. Savio and many other students saw this ban as an infringement of their freedom of speech, thus motivating them to protest. Another student leader of the free speech movement was Jack Weinberg. Weinberg joined the Berkeley chapter of CORE, Congress of Racial Equality, in 1963, then eventually became the head of Campus CORE in the fall. In the fall of 1964, Jack Weinberg was working at the CORE table on Sproul when he was arrested after refusing to show campus police his ID. Weinberg's arrest incited a 36-hour protest that resulted in his eventual release. Clark Kerr, the president of the UC system, was an essential part of the free speech movement. He had initially helped to ease a 1939 ban of on-campus political speech and was highly against Ed Strong's order to have the sheriffs enforce the ban in 1964. Although he did not override it, he did help the students negotiate for Jack Weinberg's release.
In the modern world, there are many concerns surrounding freedom of speech. Americans enjoy the strongest legal constitutional protection of free speech probably in world history, but they still fear the consequences of being fired for speaking out on certain political views. One point of regular debate is whether there is a free speech breaking point, a line at which the hateful or harmful or controversial nature of speech should cause it to lose constitutional protection under the First Amendment. UC Berkeley professor John Powell said of classroom prohibitions, "That's a very serious freedom of speech issue. To me, that is so far off the rail." He's especially alarmed at the record number of books that are being banned in schools all over the country. Conservatives object to books about sex, gender issues, and racial injustice, and liberals object to books containing outdated racial depictions. People both on the left and the right are sort of coming at free speech from different angles with different grievances that point to a general loss of faith in the First Amendment.
They logged every struggle from the smaller protests that took place to the occupations of entire buildings. On January 3, 1965, the chronology cites the changes made to regulations regarding freedom of speech on campus. Acting Chancellor Martin Mayerson announced that students could protest at multiple places on campus between the times of 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. The first legal rally took place on the steps of Sproul Hall at noon on January 4th, and UC Berkeley remains a place where students can speak their mind today.
In November 1919 and January 1920, the Palmer Raids, Attorney General Mitchell Palmer began rounding up and deporting so-called radicals. Thousands of people were arrested without regard to constitutional protections against unlawful search and seizure. In the face of the civil liberties abuses, a small group of people decided to take a stand, and thus was born the American Civil Liberties Union. One of ACLU's earliest battles was the Scopes trial of 1925. Then, in 1954, was Brown v. Board of Education, and in 1973 was Roe v. Wade. And in more recent times, in 2003, the ACLU persuaded the Supreme Court in Lawrence v. Texas. In 2005, keeping religion out of the science classroom. In 2004, striking down the Defense of Marriage Act. In 2020, fighting LGBTQ+ discrimination in the workforce. And finally, in 2021, advocating for students' free speech. The ACLU is frequently asked to explain its defense of certain people or groups, particularly controversial and unpopular entities such as American Nazis, the Ku Klux Klan, and the Nation of Islam. We do not defend them because we agree with them, rather we defend their right to free expression and free assembly.